Edu Gamers, we have Videocast episode number 4, and we're going to look at student and player autonomy in games and learning. I'm Dustin Stats from Board Gaming with Education. Let's go! For these Videocast episodes, we look at a specific topic that was covered on the Board Gaming with Education podcast. So this topic is from episode number 4, where I had the privilege to talk to Dr. Wictz. Dr. Wictz is a game design duo of Aaron and Austin. A lot of their games are rooted in economic principles, but you wouldn't know that playing that. It's a really cool conversation we get into on the podcast, and I recommend checking out that episode. But we're going to talk about a point that Aaron brings up on the show. He is an economics professor, and he talks about how he uses games for learning in his courses. So let's listen in to hear what he has to say.
The challenge of board games is, and this is true not just for people who want to teach with games, but it's also true for people who are designing games. Board games, because of the way they operate, you probably only have the ability to focus on a very narrow lesson. Some people, they try to cover too many things with a game, and games are not set up well to do that. At least I think from a teaching perspective. When I'm using Catan to teach about price ceilings, I'm not worried about other aspects because that's asking too much of my lesson goals.
So now the focus of this videocast episode, like other ones, is to engage you in conversation and start thinking about game-based learning or gamification or games and learning. So I ask you this: what is the biggest challenge you have in implementing games in your classroom? And have you implemented any board games as a part of a game-based learning lesson? If so, which ones? Share a little bit about how you did it and what game it was in the comments below. For me, when I've adapted a board game, the biggest challenge is adapting it to larger class sizes. So usually if I have a team-based game, what I can do is split the teams up into 3 or 4 teams instead, and some of those teams can share responsibilities or mirror what other teams do. So an example of some board games that might be a little bit easier to adapt for larger class sizes are team-based games. For team-based games, you can just expand the game by creating more than just 2 teams. What you can also do if you have a game where teams are guessing points, instead of having them guess publicly, you can have them guess secretly in groups and have them work in teams to come up with their answers. Also, you could just have the groups guess at the same time. So have 3 groups trying to guess instead of just the one team trying to guess. So those are some things that you can play around with team-based games. But what about you? What are some challenges when you implement game-based learning or when you think about using board games in your class? Leave a comment below and let me know. And be sure to check out the Board Gaming with Education podcast that comes out on Mondays. Stay tuned for our next videocast episode on Thursdays.